to march for those that can't, the unborn. So it's a wonderful. If you ever have a chance to go to a March for Life, please do. There's the West Coast, there's the DC March. It's just amazing. So Christy, we're on the same page. This incident happened in front of the Lincoln Memorial after the March for Life. After that, when the kids were ready to go home, Jerry. So I know we're bringing on Al Cresta to help us with this, so we can get a little background, so we can have a really healthy discussion.
Yeah, we want to hear your takes on this. What are your thoughts on this? How the Covington Catholic High School students acted during that very tense situation, the different groups that were provoking them, the way that this has been handled, especially in social media, but then of course by other means of media as well, radio and television. 833-288-3986. The Diocese of Covington immediately kind of came down on the students, took the side of the other people. There are people outraged about that. So there's a lot of pieces swirling around in this, and we want to know, what you know about it and what your thoughts are on it. 833-288-3986. And yes, Debbie, Al Cresta is host of Cresta in the Afternoon, and he has been covering this wall to wall. And I heard Al say something the other day that not only do the Covington students not need a reprimand, but they should get a medal for the way they acted. And Al is joining us here for at least a few minutes here on the opening of the program of Take Two with Jerry and Debbie to give us just a bird's eye snapshot chronology of all of this. Al, thank you for joining us.
Well, Jerry, thanks for asking. And Debbie, you had it right. This setting of this whole thing was after the March for Life. It was late afternoon, around 4:30, and they were at the Lincoln Memorial. That's where the Covington Catholic High School kids meet every year after the March for Life to get their buses. So they were there just normally doing what they do. There were two other major actors in this whole thing. One is the Native American activist, Nathan Phillips, and then there's also a small group of 4 to 5 people who are called Black Hebrew Israelites. They are provocateurs. They imagine that they themselves are descendants of the chosen children of Israel, and they do everything they can to elicit anger and viciousness from others. So, for instance, I can't read everything they said, but this is the kind of stuff they said, and I'm going to bleep out what I can't say. So this is what the Black Hebrew Israelites are saying to the boys. I'm going to stick my foot in your blankety blank, and I don't give a blank about your police, pompous blank with your dirty blank hats and dirty blank animals. You're incest babies. You crackers are some silvery blank blank. You believe in a blankety blank. Anyways, you get some idea of the Black Hebrew Israelites who were there trying to provoke the students. The students were behaving exceptionally well. At one point, one of the students asked one of the chaperones if they could sing some of their high school songs that they sing at athletic events, football games, basketball games. We've got spirit, how about you, that kind of stuff. So they were singing, kind of trying to overcome the foul language and the vileness of this small group of Black Hebrew Israelites. Now, there were significantly more Covington High School students there. But anyways, the chaperone said, sure, go ahead and sing. For some reason, Nathan Phillips, who was there as the Native American activist leading a group, they go to the Arlington Cemetery to pray for Native American veterans. They also lead what's called the Indigenous Peoples March. Nathan Phillips, looking like a Native American, long stringy hair, wearied-looking, beating a drum, decides that he's supposed to put himself between the Black Hebrew Israelites and the Covington High School students. Now, 3 minutes of this encounter was circulated and went viral after the event. And many people thought it looked as though the Covington High School students had surrounded Nathan Phillips as he was beating his drum, and one young man, Nick Sandman, was supposedly smirking and staring down Nathan Phillips. That was the short 3-minute video clip. what people didn't know is that there was a 2-hour video of the whole event, which put this all in context. And almost everything that was reported about the event initially was wrong. Almost everything. So, for instance, it was said that the students, Covington High School students, kind of gathered around the Native American Nathan Phillips as he was beating his drum and mocked him. Not true. It was Nathan Phillips who came from his position and inserted himself rather aggressively right into the center of the Covington High School students. And for some reason, he picked Nick Sandeman to walk right up to and beat his drum. Virtually in Nick's face, definitely invading his personal space. Nick stood there. He said he was praying. He was smiling. The other kids in the group found it, they were bemused. I mean, they thought this was an unusual action. And so they continued to watch this whole thing. I have not heard anything about the students. We've checked this video over and over again. We do not hear anybody saying, build the wall, build the wall. But because these kids were wearing Make America Great Again red caps.
Yeah, Al, hold that thought right there. That's an important part of this whole story. Al Cresta is with us, and we want your calls on the the nontroversy surrounding the Covington Catholic High School students. Take 2 with Jerry and Debbie.
Thanks for being with us on Take 2 with Jerry and Debbie. We're talking about the Covington Catholic High School incident that happened after the March for Life in front of the Lincoln Memorial this past weekend. And we've got Al Cresta with us, the host of Cresta in the Afternoon. You can catch Al Cresta 4 p.m. Eastern Time for 2 hours. I would highly recommend it. You get addicted to Al Cresta, and we are just, we love Cresta in the Afternoon. Al, thank you for making time to just give us the background of all of this so we can get a better understanding. And then hopefully you'll stay with us a little longer, Al, after you finish and address what Jerry was just touching upon about these MAGA hats that somehow was the reason. Or is that the reason that they were targeted, Al?
I think there's the way they were attacked. Let me say my own opinion on this. Just judging by what the Native American activist Nathan Phillips has said, the way he tells the story, it seems to be very clear. He assumed that because these and by the way, only some of these boys were wearing these "Make America Great Again" caps. They had bought them on the street there in Washington, D.C., according to the chaperone that I talked to, because they did some sightseeing after the March for Life. So they didn't even arrive wearing those caps for the March for Life. They just picked them up when they were sightseeing in D.C. But what happened is, in a sense, this is a bit of Trump derangement syndrome. Nathan Phillips saw that some of them, and Nick Sandman was one of them, wearing this red hat. And he assumed that because they were wearing a red hat, that they must be hostile to Native Americans, hostile to African Americans, hostile to, they just assumed that the red hat was code for being racist, intolerant, and bigoted. And that's one of the reasons Nathan Phillips walked right into the group of the Covington High School students. And really, he's the one who confronted Nick Sandman. Nick didn't move towards Phillips. Phillips moved towards him. And that was one of the things that was misreported from the very beginning. The black Hebrew Israelites were there taunting the boys. The boys did not respond to those taunts at all. They stood there and took it. And they even smiled about it. They figured this was a weird kind of cultural display. It was reported that Mr. Phillips was a Vietnam vet. That was not true. He was a Vietnam-era veteran, but he had not, people were saying he went and put his life on the line in Vietnam. That's simply not true. The boys, if you look at the long video, 2-hour video, you can see the extraordinary restraint. These are high school boys. They're energetic. They're singing their school song, and it was simply misinterpreted by Mr. Phillips, who actually escalated the event by asserting himself into the Covington High School kids. Mm-hmm. Now, we know from our own investigation that he has done this before. I think it was either 2016 or 2017 at a Dakota Access Pipeline protest. He feared the same thing, that some white protesters were getting angry at some black protesters, and he, as kind of the Native American spiritual runner, spiritual agent, inserted himself between the two groups, beating his drum and thinking that he was an agent for peace. So this whole thing got picked up. The 4-minute video provoked negative comment around the country. Mm-hmm. Best-selling liberal Muslim author Reza Aslan said that Nick Sandman had a punchable face. Howard Dean, former Democratic Party chief, said that Covington Catholic High School is a hate factory. Even the Diocese of Covenant went ahead and condemned the boys based on the 3-minute video without having seen the whole thing.
And Hollywood did too, Al. Hollywood did too.
All over. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Very few, relatively few people have apologized. Many of them have taken down their negative tweets. Mm-hmm. I have to say, CNN did start off with a very distorted picture. As of Tuesday, they had changed their tune considerably. The New York Times has modified its statement a little bit, but overall, these boys, have been suffering. Literally, they've had death threats. They had to close Covington Catholic School down on Tuesday because of security threats. And these boys are going to face all kinds of, they might. Look, they're going to apply for a job in 10 years, 5 years. Somebody Googles, their name. Who knows what's going to come up on the Internet. So this is really an ugly moment right now. And Catholics ought to be standing with these young men. They did one could say, well, couldn't they have prayed the rosary instead of singing their school song? Sure, that would have been maybe ideal. But look, they did nothing wrong. I saw nothing wrong at all in the 2 hours of video. And I've been asking people to point out where they did something wrong. Right.
Al, a couple things I just want to ask you real quickly, because we know you have to get ready for your wonderful show, and we want to let you get on your way because we have listeners that are calling in, which if you want to weigh in on this and share your take, your decision of what you think this is this a nontroversy, a controversy, a problem, an incident? Is the damage done? We want to hear from you at 1-833-288-EWTN. But Al, a couple quick things. I just wanted to make sure we're fact-checking here. So you did say Nathan Phillips was saying he was a Vietnam vet, but then the military came out and said he served during that time but was never deployed. Okay, and you're
right.
Okay, so that's already... True. All right. Now, here's the other thing I wanted to ask you real quickly, Al. Is it true that his group, Nathan Phillips, that the Native American tribal elders group, tried to disrupt a mass at the Immaculate Conception the next night? Is that true, Al?
Yes, that is true.
Wow.
Yeah.
And is there any?
Well, that was Saturday. That was on Saturday night.
Okay. And have they issued any apologies?
Was there at that mass.
Okay. Any apologies have been issued?
No, I haven't seen any.
Wow.
The Nathan Phillips group imagines that they're the ones who are they're the ones trying to signal their virtue to everybody. I should mention, too, that the Omaha tribe that Nathan Phillips is a part of has said in the past that they do not approve of this kind of protest, but they kind of let him go his way. They think he's well-intentioned, and he might be. But the point is he's misunderstanding the situation.
Okay, and then the other thing too, Al, real quickly, is it true that Nathan Phillips just came out this morning? We had one of our loyal listeners from New York just texted us and said that he came out this morning and he forgives these teens. Is that true? So now he's going to be hailed as a hero for causing these kids to could have a lifetime of punishment from this, which is tragic. Is it true that he's now been okay?
Yeah, he's like the arsonist who sets the fire and then puts it out and claims he's a hero.
Wow. Unbelievable.
That's what this is. He's the one who escalated the controversy. And, I don't know. I mean, look, professional activists know that when they insert themselves into a situation, make sure they get it on camera, and that they look then for aspects of it that they can exploit. And I think what he saw there, he saw Southern white adolescent boys singing their school fight song. They were wearing "Make America Great Again" caps, and they were pro-life. You can check off the list. Those are all considered part of the list of the cultural deplorables right now. They were white, they were male, they were Christian, they were boisterous, they were wearing MAGA hats, they were attendees at the March for Life. And I think Nathan Phillips saw that this was a no-lose situation for him. They were many, he was one. They were white, he was a minority. He sees himself as the old, wise Native American with tear running down his cheek because of broken treaties and polluted rivers. And I think he knew that this would play well, and his people got it on camera. And these kids were unsuspecting.
Yeah. I was just going to say, here you got a bunch of high school kids who were there to March for Life and then do a little bit of sightseeing and caught completely off guard, and they're probably just innocently having a good time and never would have expected something like this to happen. I agree with you, Al. They deserve a medal and not the all the degradation that they're getting. But at any rate, thank you, Al. We got to get to our callers. We got a lot of them.
Yeah.
Keep
thanks so much.
Yeah, God bless you. Al Cresta in the afternoon, 4 to 6 Eastern Time. I'm sure you'll hear more about this on his show and Catholic Connection and many of the other shows on EWTN Radio. Okay, Debbie, we got some calls. And
we do, but we have an open phone line. So we need to fill that phone line. If you have something to say about this, please call in now at 1-833-288-3986. That's the number to call. Jim has been waiting so patiently. You heard all of what Al had to say. Jim in Bismarck, North Dakota, listening on Real Presence Radio. Hi, Jim, and welcome to Take Two.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. Yeah, I saw the headline, and I had to watch the whole video just to see exactly what was going on. And, yeah, I agree with Al. They unfortunately belong to three of the most hated groups in the United States right now. They're white, they're Christian, and they like Trump. So, I don't know.
And they're male.
Everybody was commenting on this. Yeah, the male, of course, yeah. Everybody was commenting on this young man's smirk that he had on his face. And I had a teenage son, and that was the smirk that my son would make when he was like, what do I do now? I mean, totally like, oh, my gosh, something's going on, and I don't know how to deal with this. So that's kind of what I thought when I saw the smirk. It definitely wasn't a smart aleck smirk. I didn't think. I mean, I could see my son in that young man. And, the black Israelite group, my goodness, those people, holy cow. how could these young men end up on a video, but that group not be all over the news? I mean, they're all about hate. It's horrible. There was one gentleman from that group. There was a young guy cruising around one of those little electric scooter things, and this guy kept saying over and over again how if he gets close enough, he's going to just pound him. I mean, he was right there. He was all about, beating somebody up. And none of that made it on the news, but this kid smirking.
Right. Well, Jim, that's the first thing that I thought of when I saw that. I said to my husband, I raised 2 boys, and I'm right with you, Jim. My son used to do this exact same thing. And when he became 18, I said, what was that smile you used to always have when I used to chastise you and used to get upset with you? And he says, I was nervous. And that was the way he used to do it. And I saw that completely in Nick. I did not, here's the thing. These kids were not going to smirk because they would have gotten into they would have been a brawl. So it wasn't that. These kids I think they were blindsided. I think they were caught off guard. The comments that were being made to them about how they were conceived and how priests are and how their church is and what they believe and everything. I think it just totally shocked them. And I think the chants that they did, the school chants, was a way of drowning out that evil that was coming at them. These kids were totally shocked. And the way I say that, Jim, because I was a youth minister for many years and I used to chaperone a lot of these trips. And I'll tell you what, I think these kids behaved beautifully.
I agree. I mean, they're not used to that kind of hostility. I mean, honestly, I would have never been at their age. I think those kids acted very honorably, and I know Mr. Phillips was in the Marine Corps, and I've been in the Marine Corps for 6 years. I was in the Marine Corps for 6 years myself, and his actions were totally dishonorable. I'm sorry, but you don't lie. I mean, if you're an honorable Marine, you don't lie. I read up on his record too, and there's other things he did in the service, and I won't say them, but I mean, he may have been in the service, but trust me, not everybody in the service is a good and honorable person. It's just like the real world. Just because you're in the service doesn't make you a saint.
Right.
So,
let me add something. Too. Go ahead, Jim. Go ahead. Finish your thought.
I mean, everybody. You get the impression that everybody says, "Oh yeah, he was in the military." Well, that doesn't mean a whole lot to me. I mean, there's gangbangers in the military. There's a lot of stuff in the military that people don't want to know about. It doesn't make you a saint. So, yeah, I mean, I admire people for serving their country, but it doesn't make them a saint. So they're a person like anybody else.
Here's the thought I have on this. You got a whole group of these high school students. Nick Sandman is kind of the central figure in this because he was the one that was, stared down and face to face with Nathan Phillips. Okay. I'm sure there's no question these students were told there are going to be, and probably more with regard to the March for Life than afterward. They were told there are going to be protesters, there are going to be people shouting, let's keep our composure, let's remain together, let's remain prayerful, let's remain polite and charitable. And this is completely after the March for Life. And you got to imagine if there was any hatred, if there was any bigotry or prejudice in any one of them, there would have been at least one of them would have come down and maybe stuck their chest out or maybe given a shove or something. But to a student, at least from what I saw, they stood there and did not move, and they all kept the same posture as Nick Sandman. And it just shows to me, Debbie, you act in particular situations based on how you've been, trained yourself and grown in virtue and patience and all of that. Who you really are comes out in moments like that. And I'm saying these kids are probably getting a very good formation in the virtues and in prayer and in spirituality and in being charitable to others. And this seemed to come out. So there was not a single gesture that I'm aware of in that incident on the part of any one of the students. Mm-hmm. And you'd have to think, if there was some hatred or bigotry or some, but I'm going to get back at you in any of them, that, at least one of them, somebody would have shouted something, given a shove, stuck their chest out or something. So I don't know. I think it was probably a setup. The whole thing may have been a setup. Who knows? But anyway.
Well, thank you, Jim, so much for weighing in on this. We appreciate it. And Kip and Kate and Mary and Patty and the others, please hold on. When we come back, more of your takes on the Covington Catholic High School incident that happened in front of the Lincoln Memorial this past weekend. We'll be right back on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. More of your calls here on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. We're talking about the incident that happened this past weekend in front of the Lincoln Memorial with the Covington Catholic High School teens. And you probably have seen a ton of footage just turning on the news, but we're trying to unpack it together as a Take Two family to see what your takes are about this and what we can do to spin this to go forward in a positive way. I just wanted to say real quickly, Jerry, I think Lori had just made a great comment. I love it. Lori just came in on our website, take2show.com, and she says the Covington boys were only in D.C. to march for the unborn. We can bring positive out of this event for the unborn by making a tribute donation to the march in honor of Nick Sandmann. Wow.
Good suggestion here. And I want to just real quickly, before we go to your calls, thanks for your patience. A lot of email coming in as well. And Ted in San Antonio sent this in. He says, 2 thoughts. 1, nowadays, it's easy to be despondent about the state of the church, but in retrospect, the students from Covington were easily the most mature, respectful, and Christ-like participants in the whole incident before and after the event. Gives a good example and renewed hope that there's still a future for the old girl, the church. And he says, number 2, isn't it ironic that the incident occurred on the weekend before Martin Luther King Day? Nick Sandmann was severely criticized and commended for simply non-violently looking back at his antagonist and smiling. Is nonviolent, respectful dissent no longer to be tolerated, let alone celebrated? And that's from Ted in San Antonio.
Wow. Great takes we're getting on this. Real quickly, Jerry, I just wanted to add, I did some Google research on the MAGA hat, the Make America Great Again hat, and it doesn't necessarily mean you're a big Trump supporter. It happens to be a trendy hat right now. Maybe we should say thank you to Kanye West. I don't know. But it's a trendy hat. So let's keep that in mind as well. It doesn't necessarily mean that you are completely pro-Trump. So, okay, Kip in Dublin, Ohio, on St. Gabriel Radio. You've been waiting patiently, and welcome to Take Two. Hi, Kip.
Hey, how you guys doing? Thank you so much for having me on. Bless you both for being there. And I appreciate you opening up this conversation again. It's really been heavy on my heart since it happened, and I, as a Catholic, I guess part of what troubles me most about it is that we live in this incredibly toxic moment, in this incredibly toxic culture where I feel that there are efforts again and again and again to bait us and to bait all of us into behaving in ways that really are unbecoming of us. I believe that there was an effort to try to turn what was, in my opinion, a non-event that had some complicated dimensions to it into an attack on the Covington boys. And I believe that was a concerted effort. But I also believe that it's incumbent on us as Catholics to really reflect on ourselves and our place in this and in this situation. And I'm going to say something that's probably very unpopular, but I think it's important for us to reflect on the fact that the red hat is more symbolic than we'd like to perhaps admit, and that it's symbolic to a lot of our Catholic brothers and sisters for whom it does represent a threat, and whose children are being detained, or who are in a slightly different relationship to our own nation, but they're our brothers and sisters as well. And so I guess I would pray that we all can open our hearts a little bit in the face of this, and try to bring some love and some forgiveness and some grace and some understanding. And as the last caller suggested, look for those moments to do the good out of this. It troubles me to hear us participating in character assassination. I think we're better than that.
Kip, fantastic take. Thank you so much. And I think the one thing we have to keep in mind is, these boys, they're the whipping boys. They're the scapegoats in this. What this is really about is a hatred for Donald Trump. And I'm not here to say for or against Trump. He's a blowhard. We all know that. He's done a lot of good things, appointed some pro-life Catholics. So we got to take the whole package, the whole president, the whole Mr. Trump as he is. But we're getting a lot of emails, people saying they should not have worn the MAGA hats. Okay, maybe not during the March for Life anyway. But let me ask this in response to that, and this is not inflammatory. I'm just asking. The Vice President Pence was there, and he introduced the video of Donald Trump. And Donald Trump said many of the usual things that he does, and he said, "Let's God bless America, God bless pro-life, let us defend the unborn, who are the future of our country." Donald Trump had a presence at the March for Life. And his whole mantra is "Make America Great Again." So if somebody's wearing a Make America Great Again hat, I would think that restoring dignity for human life and being hopefully returning us to being a godly country and a moral country and doing many of the things Trump has done. He's done a lot of goofy, bad things, but I don't see the problem with wearing the hat, Debbie. Because people are happy about many of the good things that he's doing. I don't know. That's just my take. I don't mean to be, like Kip, I say, inflammatory toward anybody.
Kip, and going back to what you said about having this go into a positive direction. My husband texted over that I guess today is apparently, I don't doubt him that he says this, National Compliment Day. Okay, that's what today is. And so I just feel in my heart that I would love to compliment those that really did stand up for these boys. These are young men. These are the future of our country and our faith. And I think it's unfortunate that these boys have to have this attached to them, like Al said at the beginning of the show, possibly for the rest of their life. Now, Mr. Phillips, Nathan Phillips, the tribal Native American elder, he's going to go on and continue to do what he does best. And I compliment him for having his strong passions and convictions. I don't agree with them, but I compliment him on that. I compliment even the Black Hebrew Israelites who believe that they are the original descendants of the 12 tribes of Israel. Okay, they're protesting what they feel is best. I don't agree with them, but what they did to these boys, do you think, Kip, that was, how can I say this? For lack of a word I can grab out of the dictionary, was it kind to do to these young boys? I mean, really, when you think about it, I agree with Jerry. These boys, this was ridiculous. I mean, if you're going to pick a fight, pick a fight with adults.
I've seen video of the boys yelling at girls. The boys were behaving like boys. I think that we do them a better service not demonizing some of the other people in this situation. And I think there were some bad people. I do not believe Phillips was one of those. And I think that we do a better service by helping them understand and not making excuses. That hat does have a negative symbolism for Catholics, and we can't pretend it doesn't. And I'm sorry that that's true. And I pray for your grace in that, because I do believe the president has done some wonderful things. I don't believe that he's 100%, and I think we have to be honest as Catholics about the truth of that in our world, and that's part of the situation. So I believe there's a lesson here, and I hope we can take it. Thank you.
Okay. No,
I
respect
Kip.
that.
Yeah, and Kip, I hope that you heard what I said. I said Trump, he's a blowhard. He's done a lot of bad things. I said you got to take the whole deal. President Obama did some good things. President Clinton did some good things. The Bushes did some good things. They all do some bad things. So my point is not that. But I want America to be great again, whether it's a slogan that's attached to some blowhard in the White House or not. I want our country to be great and greater and greater and greater. And to the extent that he's doing some things that are helping that, I think it's okay. But again, let's set aside the question of wearing the MAGA hats. I guess that's. Well,
but I guess that's what provoked it, though.
Well,
I mean,
maybe
when you
it
think
did.
about
maybe
it.
Let me share an email from our dear friend Helen in Idaho, and this will follow up well on what Kip was saying. So Helen says, "Hi, Satan is at work again. We don't want to put a dark cloud over the Native Americans just because of this incident." Let me insert something here. I grew up on the coast of Washington, and probably a third or more of the students, maybe half, in my high school were Native Americans. They were Indian students, and we all got along great. And you too. And where I live, there are Hispanics, Mexicans all over the place. I don't have a prejudiced bone in my body, and I love all of the Native Americans that I grew up with. And many of my best friends are black. They're African Americans. So, anyway, Helen says, check out the book, Black Elk Speaks. I have copied some info about him. Black Elk was a famous member. I can't pronounce the tribe here. He lived in the present-day United States, primarily South Dakota. He was the second cousin of the war chief Crazy Horse. He was a convert to the Catholic Church and did much evangelization during his lifetime. I believe he's going to be considered for sainthood. Not sure, but I read that somewhere. So Helen makes a great point. We are not defending the Covington Catholic students to go on the attack against the Native Americans or the Black Hebrews or anybody else. I think, Debbie, our conversation is simply to say that they were cast in an improper light, and to the point where they're getting death threats. Mm-hmm. So this has to be. This has to be rectified to the best, of anyone's ability.
But Jerry, I just have to say you're being very kind when you're addressing this, because I just wanted to say what would have happened if that 2-hour video hadn't surfaced? I mean, these kids their lives would have been ruined,
right?
And the truth wouldn't have come out. I'm sorry, as a mother, I'm horrified by this, that this could happen to our youth. Well, okay, maybe I'm way off. I need other moms or dads to weigh in and back me on this if you feel the same way. Kate in Michigan on Beriga Radio. Hi, Kate. Thanks for waiting and welcome.
How you doing? I'm glad to be here.
Thanks, Kate.
3 points. I went to the Right to Life March in Washington, D.C. for 2 years running, and it was a wonderful experience, and yet the mainstream media ignored us totally. And I watched the cameras. They were there, but they just didn't put it out. This particular year, I saw a little bit at the end of our evening news on the local station. They showed one little bit of our 2 million people walking, but yet nobody saw anything about the Right to Life, but we saw this big, huge, and it went viral, of course, probably because of social media. But let's take a look. Why are these other groups there even? This is a day that the Right to Life people come to Washington, D.C., and all of a sudden you've got these groups that have absolutely nothing to do with that coming, and now we're having problems. I think somebody brought the point out. Satan is alive and well and working very actively. That black religious group, when I think of a religious group, I think of people who are trying to better themselves, better their lives, and better people around each other. They don't go out with foul mouths, hate-filled, calling people names. These people were doing nothing but baiting those kids, and those kids had to be at that spot because that's where they had to pick up their bus. Having been to a Right to Life march, I know how many buses there are there, and everybody's got to be where you're told to be. They have this thing so beautifully organized that you get to the bus where you're supposed to be, and that you'll be picked up, or you get left behind. So those kids were where they were supposed to be. These other groups, well, they were wherever they wanted to be. Mr. Phillips, okay, stolen valor. He was a U.S. Marine Corps reservist. He was AWOL multiple times. He did lots of things, and he's done good things and bad things. But it was very obvious that some of these things were very self-serving that I watched, and I watched that thing for like you say, there was a whole 2 hours of it. I think that part of the problem here is because these were a bunch of white boys from a Catholic school, so right there you know you're bad because you're a Catholic and you've got your exclusive school, because we know about Catholics, how exclusive they are, and they all think they're better than us, so we have to lambaste them. I see this as what is happening in America today is we are becoming very, very rude. We're becoming very vulgar. I mean, look at some of these people who have been elected recently, and they've got mouths like sewers. Come on, you represent us. Stop this kind of language. Stop giving them all the... They want the video? Good, let them have all the airtime. They don't need it. But these children are children. And I know, like when that young boy was standing there smirking, no, that isn't smirking. He had that grin on, and I had the same thing. When I get into a corner, and I'm 70-some years old, and even today, if I get into a corner, I laugh. And that's the word. Here you are. You're having a heated argument or something, and you're laughing. And that makes the other person even angrier because you're laughing. You're not laughing at them. You're laughing because you're nervous as a tomcat on a room full of griddles. Mm-hmm. So that's the whole thing. The mainstream media ignores us except when there's something nasty to be said about us, and then all of a sudden we get on front page. And the same thing with all this stuff. The cell phones taking all the pictures, okay. But let's take a look and see what the big picture is. Those children are still children. And it's funny, when that young Trayvon Martin was a boy, and he was treated like a little boy. He was 18 years old. These kids aren't even 18 years old yet, but they're being treated like they're convicted felons. That is wrong. They are boys, and boys get scared, and boys aren't going to show that they're scared because, hey, boys aren't supposed to be scared. They're supposed to be brave. But they stood there. They behaved themselves. Nobody was swinging guns or doing anything wrong. And and I'm sorry that people, because we have social media, people jump in with their 2 cents or their 50 cents, and they don't have all the information. And the bottom line is the old story used to be, believe none of what you hear and half of what you see. Well, now with media being adjusted and tweaked and played with, you can't believe much of what you see either, because when you saw the big picture, it wasn't what you saw at all in that little bitty vignette. Right. And you watch, in a week when we have the Women's March, the media will show this, and it will look like there's thousands and thousands of people there. And if there are 1,000 people, that'll be great. But there weren't a couple of million people like there were last week. So, again, we can liars can figure and figures can lie.
Kate, you know what? We can't add much more to that. We can hear your passion, and I just want to thank you for weighing in on this. I mean, you shared some really, really great points for all of us to listen to, and I just wanted to say, Kate, I agree with you. I just want to say, as you were talking, I was thinking to myself, what part of this offends me the most? And actually, to be honest with you, I think the boys are going to grow from this. They're going to learn. They're going to realize how the world can be cruel, can be really cruel, and they're going to have to really, stay firm in their faith. But Kate, I got to tell you, I would like, as a Catholic, I would like an apology from Nathan Phillips's group who disrupted the Mass. I mean, why aren't we demanding an apology for that? I don't understand that, because this is unbelievable. Our sacred Mass, it can be disturbed, but that's okay. We have to have heightened security. We have to have the parishioners go out the back door, but that's okay. I mean, this doesn't make any sense. We are being persecuted, in my opinion, and I think this is really sad. And I think this is just another example of how this is going to affect all of us someday. So, Kate, thank you so much for your comments. Jerry?
Thank you, Kate, for the call. Great insights, wonderful calls. In fact, our phone lines are absolutely jam-packed still right now. So what we're going to do is we were going to do our monthly unscripted show, talk about anything we want tomorrow, and we probably still could, and it would likely be this topic, but we're definitely going to include this tomorrow. You can call in and talk about anything you want tomorrow, but we're going to leave the phone lines open for this topic again, maybe for a part 2 tomorrow, Debbie. What do you think?
Right. Because I think we should do it, but we also promised to do the New York abortion bill as well, Jerry. So we're going to discuss that too. I don't know if we can roll that into Monday or whatever, but we guys, we're on top of it. There's a lot of new stuff coming at us pretty fast, so we're trying to stay abreast of what's going on. Okay, can we go?
Okay, yeah, Patty in Longview, Texas, with Take Two with Jerry and Debbie, listening on the EWTN app on her smartphone. Hi, Patty, welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for taking my call. As a cradle Catholic, actually my focus is a little bit different than what I've heard before, and it's on the way that our clergy reacted to those kids. They were pretty quick to dump on those kids and on me as an extension of them. I wish that they would have given the benefit of the doubt, just like they extend the benefit of the doubt of any priest that's accused of any inappropriate behavior. I wish that they would have extended that to those kids, but they didn't. That's my focus right now. I understand that they're in a pickle because of everything that's been going on, but that's my focus on the way that those kids were not assisted by clergy. And as far as some of the other comments about wearing the MAGA hat and everything and legislating our appearance now as Catholics, we're not able to do anything. What's next? I'm not going to be able to drive my Mercedes because all of a sudden it's a German car and now I support Hitler. I mean, that's another thing that I don't agree with. I mean, those kids should have been protected by our clergy to begin with.
Deb?
That's how I see it.
Okay.
I totally agree, but you go first, Jerry. I want to share a little bit.
I'm not as familiar with the responses of the clergy. I'm just familiar with the immediate response of the Diocese of Covington, which I guess in today's climate is somewhat understandable. I don't know if they have come out with anything more in defense of the students than they initially did. I think that there was initially this is just what I've heard. I didn't read it, Debbie. Maybe you did, but
I have
sounds
read
like
several accounts.
They kind of threw the students under the bus, which was a little bit disappointing to me. And I would certainly hope that, see, this is a moment for the church's leadership to come out and say, hey, wait a minute, this was a good action, a good example of Catholicism and Christianity. Patty's pointing out we live in a time, Debbie, where there are so many scandalous examples of this, and we need to proclaim from the rooftops that this was a holy and virtuous example of what our faith should be as we live it out on the streets, and take advantage of this opportunity, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Patty, I agree with you. I was very disappointed. There was a lot of high-profile clergy that weighed in very quickly and condemned the students, and without getting the facts. Then they have since made an apology. I think it's kind of somewhat of a weak apology, but an apology to these students. But let's face it, Patty, we are, like Jerry said, we're in a climate right now where there's a lot of fear. We don't need more bad publicity. We try to rein it in as quickly as possible as Catholics. We're divided as Catholics, which is a problem, Patty. I mean, in this, I just believe in my heart of hearts that this example is for all of us to wake up and to realize we have a hard road ahead of us. As Catholics, we've got to be firm in our faith, fix our eyes on Jesus, don't get distracted, don't get off the mark, and we've got to stand together. I mean, a beautiful march took place in Washington, D.C., beautiful, peaceful, wonderful march for the unborn. And then look how now this has been the headlines. It's just tragic. Patty, I'm sorry. I'm just very passionate about this. It just makes me sick all over. I can't even begin to tell you. But go ahead, Patty. Any comments? Oh, sorry.
No, I agree with you about the clergy throwing them under the bus. I mean, they were really quick to side with the other people. The people that are on, in my opinion, in the wrong. I mean, this kid, I thought that this was the land of the free. If he wants to wear a MAGA hat every day of his life, then he should be able to. And that's another thing that I don't agree with some of the callers, that's, it's like accusing him of instigating somebody's behavior. No, the kid is, if I go out tomorrow with a hat, I don't expect to be beaten because I'm wearing that. So, no, I have a different take, I think, than from some of the other callers.
Well, and Patty, I think every one of us, I'll speak only for myself, I think I can speak for everyone listening and everyone who is a part of the show right now. Every day as I go about my life, I see hats and shirts and bumper stickers that I go, that is despicable, that is
offensive.
Horrible, it's offensive to me, and I don't go up and beat a drum in somebody's face. I don't go up and grab them by the shirt collar and say, because you're wearing that shirt, I have a beef with you. I just say he has the right to do that. And I honor his personhood, his or her personhood, their dignity. I might say a little prayer, Lord, if that's offensive to you, Father, I just pray that, you might open his or her eyes. And I just pray for their good, and this is the way we need to do things. But as so many people have pointed out on the show, Debbie, because of the demographic group that these young men are in many different categories, they were easy targets for this. So thanks, Patty, for your call. Appreciate it.
Okay, do we have time for one more? Or you make the call? I know we're getting close.
Well, I wanted to mention, too, Michael, who watches on YouTube every day. Michael said, shame on the shepherds who sided with the media in this. So Michael has that same sentiment as well.
But they're making apologies now, so thank goodness.
Right. And yeah, that's good. That's good.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, this is not to blame the Diocese of Covington or our priests or religious or clergy or anybody, because we're kind of on the defensive right now. The church is reeling, right. And if there's any hint at all that any Catholics, individuals, or groups have done something else offensive, I think the immediate response is going to want to be to say, hey, we're sorry, Mm-hmm. But in this case, that was unwarranted, and I do hope that I do hope that there is a strong response or clarification on the part of the diocese and anybody. There were conservative Catholic writers and commentators, Debbie, who jumped right on the students right away and sided with the media, and I hope that they come out and retract what they said. And,
thank goodness for cell phones and video footage.
Yeah.
So we can't take any more. Can we just say, Wanda and Bryant and Mary and Delane, please call back tomorrow. Please, or email us, take2@EWTN.com. Folks, I just want to let you know something so I don't have to get any emails saying, Debbie, you were really, your blood pressure was sky high. I was a youth minister so I'm going to cry. I was a youth minister for many years with teens, and I'm going to tell you something. These boys were amazing. Were they perfect? No, but they were amazing. I'll tell you what, it would have taken a lot. They would have had to hold me back because the things that were being verbally thrown at them, it would have taken everything inside of me to stay quiet, Jerry. I just have to be honest with you. I'm from Jersey. I tend to have a little bit of a fighting spirit, and I'll tell you what, I would have been the first one. You would have seen me all over the 5 o'clock news. So I give credit to these boys. I'd love to meet these boys someday. Maybe I'll fly out to Kentucky and meet them. You never know.
Well, this is not a sales pitch, but we had one caller call in and say he went on the school's website and ordered one of their T-shirts. So I may do the same thing. I'm not suggesting people do that. It's not a sales pitch, but that's one listener's way, Debbie, of showing his support, and he's gonna he's going to wear their T-shirt. So, you know, a lot of good can come out of this. But I think the end result is we just need to pray. We need to pray for ourselves, for our own virtue, our holiness, our growth in relationship with Christ, and for the world, those who are enemies of God, those who would try and take down the church by, you know, by doing things like that were done to these young boys. And like you said, Debbie, we're going to talk more about this tomorrow and other things on the program.
Yep, we sure are, and this is your program, Take Two, with Jerry and Debbie. Please make sure you tell your friends about it. You can always email us, take2, the number 2, at EWTN.com. Keep the comments going. Let's keep the conversation going. We'll continue this tomorrow. But we just want to wish you, this is National Compliment Day, so compliment somebody else. Would you do that? We're going to compliment you. We love you, the Take Two family. So until tomorrow, have a beautiful and blessed day. See you real soon.